So April is Autism Month, which means you may have seen the puzzle piece symbol used quite a bit in the media recently. But did you know that for many people in the autistic community, the puzzle piece symbol is not only outdated, but even offensive? And if that surprises you, it's no doubt because it's still used so much in relation to autism, even today. So in this video, I'll explain how this symbol picked up such a negative association, as well as newer ways that the autistic community use to describe and celebrate themselves. So we recently had the United Nations World Autism Awareness Day on April 2nd, a day that's traditionally been filled with puzzle pieces and lighting things up blue. So why are so many autistic adults so strongly opposed to these things? Well, firstly, hate is a very, very strong word, and I definitely do not want to imply that every autistic person shares this opinion. We're an extremely diverse community encompassing lots of differing views. I personally don't hate it as such, it's more like it's outdated and cringeworthy. A little bit like when my grandma used to talk about the Asiatics at the supermarket. And you're like, we don't use that word anymore, Grandma. It's actually considered racist. or maybe looking at the cartoons that I used to watch as a child. They were fine at the time, and if you go back and watch them now, you sort of think, wow, did we really think that was okay at the time? So a lot of the negative reaction comes from the historical context. The creation of World Autism Awareness Day, the use of the puzzle piece, the concept of lighting things up blue, it all goes back to a time when autism advocacy was done on our behalf by non-autistic people trying to help us. These days, that's not really acceptable, and we're more likely to insist on the nothing about us without us kind of philosophy. So the puzzle piece, especially a blue puzzle piece, is really associated with people speaking for us and not listening to us. And the symbolism behind the puzzle piece was that at the time, autism was a mystery. Some of the puzzle piece images even make it look like there's a piece of my brain missing somehow. So no wonder there was and still is so much stigma around autism. Even the phrase autism awareness sounds a little bit like, ooh, watch out, autism is waiting around in the bushes coming to get ya. Be afraid because it could strike at any time, that kind of messaging. So these days, now that we understand that autism is not some kind of disease and it's better understood as a part of natural neurodiversity, we have autistic adults saying, I am not a problem to be solved. Don't associate me with this puzzle piece that made no sense to you at the time because you were looking at autism from the outside and weren't listening to the actually autistic voices that are more and more common these days, shedding light on what's actually going on with autism, so it's no longer a mystery, no longer a problem to be solved. So what does the autistic community use instead? When we define ourselves, we're more likely to focus on our diversity as a defining characteristic of ourselves and our community. We use positive symbols like the rainbow infinity symbol for neurodiversity. We talk about autistic gold, a positive message affirming our strengths, differences, and uniqueness. We celebrate Autistic Pride Day on the 18th of June, a day created for autistic people by autistic people rather than by others on our behalf. You may have seen campaigns like Red Instead and Light It Up Gold, and all of these movements are essentially aimed at acknowledging how far we've come. And essentially these kind of movements are all aimed at showing that we speak for ourselves now and we don't need others to speak for us. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the autistic community is incredibly diverse, which means naturally not everyone is going to have the same privilege as I have of my communication skills, social status, access to resources and the like. So that means that advocacy requires us to actively seek out those that cannot easily speak for themselves and help them to have their own message heard. That's a very different philosophy to thinking that I need to speak for someone because they can't speak for themselves. So I should probably leave it there. Hopefully you've got a better idea now of why the puzzle piece can be such a hated symbol in the autistic community. The good news is that autistic self-advocacy really has come a very long way in recent years. Not only do we have more autistic adults like me sharing their own story, we also have non-speaking autistic people and others from all parts of our community finding their voice as well. So if you'd like to support autistic advocacy this Autism Month, the best thing you can do is help to share a diverse range of autistic voices. I personally really love being a part of the autistic community, and it's fantastic to see when we start to really come into our own and define ourselves. So I'm personally quite optimistic about what the future holds. We've come a very, very long way since those cringeworthy blue puzzle pieces. So thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you again next week. Bye.